Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Why AI. This week I'm joined by Dr. Caitlin Bentley. Caitlin is a lecturer for AI in education, an all-round incredibly interesting individual who provides some fascinating outlooks on the topic of AI. So I hope you all find this episode as educational as I did. Enjoy. Okay. So Caitlin, how are you doing? You okay?
Good. How are you, Harry?
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. Thank you for joining me today for the episode.
Thanks
Um,
for having me.
Yeah, fantastic. So just a bit of background to who you are and what you do, Caitlin, if you wouldn't mind.
So my name is Caitlin Bentley. I'm a lecturer in AI education at King's College London in the Department of Informatics. And my background is a bit unique, I would say.
Okay.
I started in computer science. I studied educational technology in my master's degree at Concordia University in Canada. And then I went abroad, worked in international development, trying to figure out how to use technology to empower people's lives by working with people and civil
Okay.
society organizations. And through that experience, I was curious to learn more about how people from different cultures learn to use technology advantageously. And then eventually, I wanted to try more to influence the way that technology was designed and developed,
Okay.
which led me eventually to working back in computer science again, trying to influence the way that computer scientists are educated to make technology more socially responsible, more environmentally responsible as well.
Yeah, brilliant. So in the sort of your day-to-day life, what does that consist of?
Yes, I'm also the co-lead on a new skills program for a new initiative called Responsible AI UK, which is a big initiative which aims to bring together the variety of stakeholders within the AI space in the
Okay.
UK. Again, trying to make AI more responsible.
Okay.
And
Right.
so in the day-to-day life, most of my job is as a lecturer. So I teach computer science students topics in professionalism, ethical computer science, ethical decision making, ethical AI, as well as critical reflective practice skills like reflection and reflective writing, topics in any of those areas as well. I support other people within my department to integrate some of these issues and more critical reflective practice techniques throughout their courses as well,
Okay.
or to include more active, engaged learning. And then the other part of my job is in co-leading this skills program, which is really about thinking about AI education more broadly than with our computer science students, in terms of how do we support industry professionals to
Mhm.
upskill or reskill? How do we influence schooling and what teachers will be teaching students,
Wow.
as well as how do we influence policymakers and what do governance skills look like around AI as well. So it's really it's a big it's big
Yeah,
and wide,
a
and I
large a
can't do
large
that
job title.
alone. No. But I should also mention as well, because I haven't quite started yet, but I'm also a co-director on a Center for Doctoral Training in AI, which is about safe and trusted AI. And this is really about supporting PhD students to work together collaboratively as a cohort, and trying to, you know, develop safe, robust, ethical AI in partnership with our industry partners and so forth as well.
So, just in your sort of opinion, obviously, this will be a very sort of simplistic way of putting it for you, I imagine, given what you do on a day-to-day basis. But are the issues of AI and AI in education quite larger than we think, or are they perhaps a bit more demonized than what they actually are?
Yeah, it's different for different disciplines, different professions, different places in the world, of course. Within the UK, and in my institution, it's definitely been a huge disruption. Um, it definitely changes certainly some of the ways that we're assessing our students. And so it is something that we need to pay attention to. It is something that we need to provide guidance on, both to students, faculty, and I already said students
Yeah. No
and
worries. Yeah.
administrators.
Yeah.
But and what was your question was around, is it something we really need to be concerned about, or is it
Yeah.
overblown? Is that it?
Because there seems to be, from just sort of being on the social media space, in regards to educators, there is quite a divide. It seems that a lot are falling, sort of pro AI rather than the opposite way. But is it quite for the people who aren't, and it seems quite a scary prospect. Do you think they sort of should be thinking like that almost, or do you think it's perhaps a little bit more demonized than it should be?
So certainly the discussion around existential threats is perhaps not the focus that is really important at this stage.
Okay.
We do need to be having critical discussions about AI, the way it's designed and developed, the impact that it's having on our lives and society. Those are discussions that we need to engage the public, engage students, teachers, administrators, policymakers. We all need to be talking about these issues. And to me, that means ensuring that everyone has the skills and the knowledge about what AI is, what it's not, in order to have those conversations. And that having those skills to be able to have those conversations means that we can take a more contextualized, nuanced approach to what AI is and does across
Right.
professions and sectors, because it is so diverse. Like it's
Mhm.
going to mean different things for dentists and healthcare professionals than it will
Absolutely.
mean
Yeah.
to me sitting at my desk writing emails and so forth.
Hmm. It's obviously it seems that the man people are sort of less scared of so obviously the whole thing of AI coming and taking the jobs from everybody. People seem to be less scared of the more sort of, like you say, dentists and that kind of thing, or perhaps plumbers and situations like that. But do you think that it's in your opinion, do you think that it's got the potential to take away the jobs, or do you think it should be sort of flipped on its head and looked at in a sense of it'll create more jobs?
It's both, and
Mm.
it's also we don't know. It's
Yeah,
also it depends on how much people get involved and influence their governments
mm,
to deliver policy that responds to their needs. But I would say I've been having this discussion a few times recently, and
yeah,
I think what seems most sensible to me is to recognize in a lot of areas that taking away our jobs is in fact a good thing, because there are a lot of jobs that are unsafe, that are maybe miserable to do, that people don't want to do, and
okay.
in those cases, it is beneficial.
Hmm.
In other areas, in certain sectors, there are certain risks that we need to be cognizant of, that we need to debate, and that we need to discuss whether protections need to be put into place or not. And certainly where I tend to focus more on is in those areas that you're talking about, in which people and AI can work collaboratively together in a team. And we do need to think more about how best to split up those tasks and abilities or competencies, and what human machine teams and what human machine team competencies look like.
Okay.
Because we often do think about um, AI is replacing us, rather than, well, a machine is good at doing certain things in a certain way. Do you understand what it's good at and how it's good at, what its limitations are, in order to engage it effectively to meet your needs? And based on that understanding, can I then respond and build and add and work together to essentially augment my intelligence rather than replace me? And so I work in the maritime sector on a new initiative called MAS People, which is really thinking about these questions in context. And the example that my colleagues use is about, you wouldn't necessarily program a boat to dock a boat in the same way that a human would do, because its sensors and its automatic adjustments can do it much more efficiently than humans could do it. So you have to take into account that the process that the AI or the machine would use is going to be different, and we need to learn about that in order to build more effective teams or systems that work together collaboratively.
Okay. Do you teach a lot of prompting at all? Does that come up in your your day-to-day job, in your lecturing, or is that something that's not so much your focus?
So we're talking about something that's arrived sort of at the end of our second semester.
Okay.
And so now we're just going into teaching this fall. And over the past year, within our department, we've had a lot of discussions about how to think about generative AI in the context of our courses, because within computer science, you can use it to generate code. You can also use it for writing and so forth. And we also have faculty that are doing really innovative things by coding and using this tool as a partner, as I was just speaking about.
Yeah.
Anyhow, but so we are trying to make it clear at what level students can or should be thinking about using such tools. As an institution, we're quite wary of using tools that we do not host ourselves, because we're still not aware of where student data is going or how it's being treated.
Yeah, that's a bit of a question mark, isn't it, around that?
So until we have institutional instances of some of these tools, or we've procured tools that all of our students can use, we're quite hesitant to recommend using or requiring using these tools. But certainly we may allow students to use those tools. And in my professionalism course, I do ask students to reflect on that, because it is going to be like a decision that they're going to have to make to what, even with this guidance, obviously students are not going to follow it all the time. So can we support them in whatever choice they make to at least be aware, metacognitively aware of what it's doing to their learning process, how they're benefiting from it, and how they're using it, so that they can, be aware that of any maybe negative consequences that could happen from that, not only just around academic dishonesty or integrity, but also about developing dependencies on these tools that and maybe in the future they start to charge for them. So are you comfortable with those sorts of things happening? And because we until we get institutional copies or tools disposable, it is this a bit of a gray area. I would love to learn. I've been hearing a lot from colleagues about the research that they've been doing, talking to students about how they're using it, how they want to use it. I recently went to a conference at King's College, and there was a lot of brilliant presentations about students using it to support their like master's thesis research, and PhD students supporting their research process as well. And it's all really interesting. I think it's definitely an area I want to pursue further. It's
Yeah.
definitely an area that we need more research and investigation into. But we're definitely talking about, just having these conversations that
Mhm.
you can't just enter things into ChatGPT and accept the response. You need to and like discuss a bit how to
Yeah.
use these tools more effectively, I
I
suppose.
think it's a bit of an issue with just sort of putting in minimal information in regards to what you want from it, and then using the massive response that you get back, and perhaps in a lot of cases, students not looking at not really, looking at what it is or editing it or just taking it on face value, which is a bit tricky. I don't know. I don't know how much if you've used it at all, or how much you've used it, or it's
Yeah, definitely.
it's very it can be quite, it just slip ups, very strange slip ups that make it quite easy
Yeah,
to
my
spot
colleague
miscommunication.
Oguza Akar in the business school, he also had a really great article about that we as educators also need to recognize when students don't have the adequate domain knowledge to
Mhm.
be able to interpret or reflect on the results that some of these tools are providing. So that is definitely an area where, to me, it becomes challenging when I'm trying to teach like a course of 300 students. Then it's really difficult to for me to be able to engage with them at that level.
Mhm.
um, and it would so it is sort of, some of these observations might need to take place in smaller tutorials, which me as a lecturer I tend not to get to do those types of intimate activities. So it is, it's an interesting challenge, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've seen a lot of really, really positive uses of it, and it definitely has the potential to be positively used. But I think uh, you've almost got to know the information that it's giving you back in a sense. And
Mm-hmm.
if the student doesn't know the information that the chat GPT, for example, is bouncing back to them, it's
Mm-hmm.
because they don't know how they got there almost. So it seems like it's a bit of a catastrophic sort of recipe.
Yeah, and I think, one of the things that I would like to see coming out in the near future is, I have some fantastic colleagues in the Department of Informatics who think a lot about verification and the
Mhm.
way that computer scientists think about verification. If we can translate that type of thinking to students across all different disciplines, not just computer scientists, and I'll share with you a video that I just thought was fantastic by Hannah Schockler, who kind of demonstrates this example of how a black box machine learning algorithm, how you could validate the results it's giving you.
Okay.
And just the techniques that you would use to try and problem solve that are going to be different than how we might just come up with a strategy to figure out if it's, you might search on Google to see if there's alignment. You might ask your friends. You might, it's very difficult. So I think some of these techniques that Hannah, the way that they are thinking about verification and
Yeah.
explainability is really something that we as computer scientists need to develop a way to communicate across to other disciplines.
Okay. Yeah, I'm taking a lot in. I feel like I'm no, it's great. It's brilliant. This is what I want. Obviously, at the end of the day, I like this. I want it
That's
to be
this
educational.
is,
Yeah.
yeah, one example, but I would say, in Responsible AI UK, we're really about multidisciplinarity and acknowledging that you need a lot of different disciplines and perspectives to be able to understand and
Mhm.
address, or like what you're saying, validate some of these results or learn to interrogate these results. And so I think we do need to have a conversation about how a historian would try to validate some of the outputs versus Hannah's approach, versus
Yes.
my approach, which is, like usually whatever works best type thing.
Yeah, yeah. Whatever
Versus,
fits.
well, yeah, like, so I think we are at that stage now where we are going to see a lot of different techniques coming out, and I think we do need to learn from them and have some of these experiments, and that's why I'm really excited to have some of these maybe co-design sessions where we can work with students from different disciplines and see how they come up with ideas for engaging with some of this information, making it better, validating it, interrogating it further.
Yeah. Just as a question that I ask a lot of the guests that I have on here, in say for example 5 to 10 years from now, where do you sort of see education and AI's place within it? I know it's obviously a very vast question, a very large question that you can't just answer in a 3 minute sort of segment, but just in a small
So just a
summative
little
way.
bit of self-promotion here, I guess. We've just published a framework for responsible AI education. And
Yes,
what
I
we
have.
argue in that paper is that we do need to have a public dialogue about our vision for education amidst these changes that AI are bringing about. And that's not going to rely just on the impact that generative AI is having on assessment, for example, but also on the broader implications of AI technologies, which are anything from machine learning algorithms, computer vision within autonomous vehicles, to data analytics and other AI that's built into our systems and structures, and all the ways in which there can be biases or flaws or implementation issues. We need to be aware and cognizant of those things to be able to design and deploy them effectively and responsibly. But we also need to be able to have the capacity to decide whether or not to use these tools, whether they're environmentally sustainable. And a lot of that is going to take reflection on the pace of innovation. Like, we're just seeing it happening so fast that we really do need to slow down, pause, and ask some of these critical questions. And I think that education has such a crucial value and importance at this moment, because, as I have been emphasizing, we do need to have everybody involved in these conversations, not just the technologists, not just the business leaders, but it affects everyone. And and I think as an institution, we also need to be responsive to these changes and recognize that our students may not just be the traditional out of secondary school coming into 3 or 4 year programs, but through programs like Responsible AI UK, we're engaging at multiple levels of society and industry, with governments. And again, like, educators have, and universities in particular, have such a crucial role in that sense, because we are in a position to hold governments to account. We are in a position to critically reflect on what technology is and does, and how it impacts on various sections of society.
Amazing, brilliant. Thank you. That's wonderful. So we'll wrap up there. I really appreciate your time today.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, no, it's been really good. It's been very very educational for me, as I hope it has been for all of our guests as well.